Thursday evening on the South Bank as Lynn Harriet was leaving work. William Chase, who's also known as Dexter Levin, shot her 6 to 7 times in the parking lot. He then shot himself in the head. Chase is a former undercover detective from Bridgeport, Connecticut. He moved here after threats were made against him. He even wrote a book about his ordeal. Jim Piggott has been talking with a friend of his and others about this man with 2 lives. He joins us live from where the shootings took place. Jim.
You know, it was here where those shots rang out on Thursday. But I'll tell you, some of the warnings rang out years ago as we learned about the book that he wrote and talked to some of his friends. Chased Alone, Black and Undercover is the book William Chase wrote with the help of another man back in 1994. He talks about the life of being a black undercover officer and what it did to his mental state. Here's an excerpt. Sometimes I feel like I was a government experiment, a test tube in a lab, a secret weapon never before launched. We needed training programs for undercovers. We needed to provide them with stress management so they can deal with the manipulations, the threats, the everyday dangers of the job. We sat down today with one of Chase's friends in Jacksonville who knew him from his days of deep undercover work. Mark Kerrin teaches forensics at various local colleges. He says Chase, who he knows as Dex Levin, also taught forensics. Kerrin says what happened is horrible, and he feels for Lynn Harriet and her family.
We were talking extensively about this issue that he and Lynn were going through, and I kept reminding him, Dex, let it go, let it go, let her go. And he seemed to be doing that. There was no indication whatsoever he was going to snap. I knew something was wrong.
Kerrin says he stressed to his friend he needed to get everything out in the open. We talked to our crime and safety analyst, Gil Smith, a former JSO officer, about this.
I don't know if you say you can blame it on past experience, but I think to some degree it can be a cause of that. Because him working undercover, you sort of take on sometimes the personality of the underworld. The violence, the profanity, the slang, that whole thing, sometimes with some officers becomes a part of their lives, and it's hard to separate that.
You know, I talked to Lynn Harriet's sister. She was the victim in this case. And they said they weren't fully aware of his entire background here, particularly with that book. And that was a surprise. Also, the police chief in Bridgeport, Connecticut, was saying that he admired him during the times that he was working up there in undercover, but said that this was a shock. And he did say that those threats against him were real. We're live on the South Bank. Jim Piggott, Channel 4, the local station.
Thanks, Jim. An experimental vaccine